Maybe you have to let go of who you want to be to become who you are.
And just like that, we're back.
So, welcome back, listeners, to Revirginized. Jay and I are very excited to bring you season 3 of the show. On today's episode, we are going to be doing a meet and greet. So, you're going to get to know a little bit more about us and why we started doing the show. So, I'm going to reintroduce myself. I am Candice B.
And I'm Jay, like the letter. The idea to meet the host, I like it because I feel like we did season 1 and season 2, and it was like we were just jumping into the project, and we didn't really take any time to like either converse on camera, you and I, or like converse to anybody that was listening or watching about, hey,
Yeah.
who are these people? Why are they here? And all that. And I was like, you know what? I think we should take a second. We have some time before that, and just like that, season 3 starts. And we decided to come back, and we said we're going to do it fully. So I think this is the perfect time for us to just dive into who the hell we are and why are we here. You know what I mean? And kind of give context to the conversation that we're about to happen. So how are you feeling, Candice?
I'm feeling really, really good. I'm feeling really good about this season. I'm feeling really good about us being on YouTube and just like expanding.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel good that we're going to be able to connect more with our audiences. So I hope you guys like this episode because we're definitely going to talk a lot about ourselves.
I agree. I'm completely excited, and I'm getting more excited as we get closer to the episode dropping of the show coming back for season 3. But I'm also excited because the mindset that I'm in for this season versus season 1 and season 2, I feel like it's in a more no expectations. I'm not waiting for anything to happen. I'm just here for the ride. We'll see what's about to show up, and it is what it is. But in the spirit of meeting the host, I did want to ask you first.
Okay.
How it is that you got into Sex and the City? How did you get introduced to the show? Like, how did you find out about the series?
All right. So this was actually a funny story. I found out by accident because the TV used to babysit me, right, when I was young. And one day, my dad was obsessed with HBO. So one day he just like had it on, fell asleep. I'm up. And I just hear this nice little intro going, and I see this woman wearing like this bizarre outfit. Yes, and I'm 8 years old, but I'm obsessed with fashion. Like instantly in kindergarten, and I just knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. So like I've been obsessed with fashion. I'm in 2nd grade. I'm like, oh look, she has a pretty outfit. What show is this? Little did I know it was an adult show, but I had no idea what was going on. Like I just thought it was a fashion show, and they talk about boys.
Girl.
So, literally, that is exactly how I got onto Sex and the City. At some point, I realized it was a little bit grown up, but you know, back then you could only watch like reruns and like you could watch the show sporadically.
Wait, when's back then? When's back then?
God, I don't want to reveal my age. Okay, in the great year of 1998.
Okay.
Right, like, and so. You know, I knew whenever there was like an adult scene, I would have to cover my eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got introduced to it pretty early.
We were definitely too young to be watching any of this. Like,
Oh,
I feel
1000%.
I feel like anything that happened after 10 and HBO, we were just not supposed to watch. But I feel like because it was a lot of sex, it was a lot of nudity, it was a lot of adult talk, it was a lot of cussing that happened during that time. HBO was adult in general. Like, I remember HBO for being adult in general, but I remember everything that would happen after 10 on HBO was definitely not for us. So I remember thinking, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be watching this. But I was living in Puerto Rico, and I think there's always been this fascination with me for New York City, right? And I was born and raised in Puerto Rico in the late 80s. Very late 80s. And I grew up in the island, but I knew that my father was born in New York, and then my mom grew up in New York. But I'd never been to New York. And then my first time in New York, I think I was like 13, 14, because we had family and we would visit, whatever, and I hated those trips. But it was around that time that we started taking them. And just being in New York or seeing this big place with these big buildings. I was always like, oh my god, like this isn't stuff from TV. So I was always fascinated by, oh well, then do people live here? And then it sparked a very young age curiosity to like, oh well, what's over there? Like, how do I get over there? And I feel like Sex and the City showed New York City. You know how Sarah Jessica Parker and the production always say that New York City was like the fifth character in Sex and the City.
Yes, yes.
I feel like that translated to me. So when I was 21, I graduated college. I had joined the military. I was in the reserves, and I knew I wanted to just get out of the island. I wanted to like just I wanted to do something else. I don't know what that feeling was. I don't know what was going on, but I Sex and the City was playing on the TV, and I was on the computer. And I, mind you, I never lived anywhere other than Puerto Rico. And I went to what is it, Expedia.com, where you the flights, right? Expedia. I went to Expedia.com and I bought a flight to New York, thinking at 21, I am this naive, thinking that if you buy a flight somewhere, you're moving. You take your stuff and you just move. No plan, no nothing. That was on a Monday. On the Thursday, I was flying to New York with everything I owned, and that's how I moved to New York. That's literally my move to New York, and it was because Sex. That's where I want to go. That's where I've always wanted to go, and I ended up in New York, and I had my New York life ever since.
I love that. And I love that you said, it's something about New York because I'm from Manhattan, right? So I remember
You
watching
were
the
born in
show.
Manhattan?
No, 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 no. My dad was also
Okay.
military, so I was born in Virginia because he was
Yeah.
stationed there. But I was raised my entire life in Manhattan.
Mhm.
And I remember when the show first came on, I was like, oh, I've walked past there. Like, oh my God, I've seen that. Like, oh my God. Like, my family always had me out and about. And so one of the things that really hooked me to the show in the later years was just the nostalgia that I had, right? Like this is New York. Like I live these places. I go to Magnolia, right? Like I'm flying up and down the east side, a todo lo que da, like all the
Mhm.
time. And so that connection was just so strong and so real.
But
And
you know what the crazy thing about that part is that when you live in New York, you start finding out every movie's filmed here. Like every
mhm,
movie, every show, everything is here. Everything has been in New York. Yes, you have. I'm not saying that every place on TV is New York, but New York is in everything on TV.
yeah.
So you get there and you're like, this is that building, this is that
Yes.
street, this is that, and it's everything starts like connecting itself.
But I love how they really kept it in, like it really was New York, right? Like it wasn't like Friends. That Friends was New
Yeah,
York, but
Friends.
it
Yeah,
was
Friends was
an
nothing New
LA
York,
set,
girl. There was
right? Like
Girl, Friends was the apartment that they had on Friends was like, who are you trying to convince that you can get this
correct.
apartment? Who?
Correct. There's just no way. And so, going from a child, right? And again, I didn't necessarily watch every single episode in order when I
Yeah,
first got onto it because back then they weren't playing like that. Like it was just
yeah.
like you wait for the new episode to come out, but if you miss it, you're watching sporadic episodes. But
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, the show really became my life. And I'm talking about 10, 11, 12 teenage years. Then when things started
Yeah.
to make sense, I'm like, oh, that's what that means, right? Like that was crazy. But it's like it was so authentic and not a lot of shows were that raw and authentic, right, to New York City. So New York
Yeah,
City
I
has
agree.
always
I
definitely been like
agree.
a fifth character, but it,
I
it
agree.
hooks you because of that.
And it filmed on a time where they could be out here in the streets,
Yes. Oh my
just
god,
out
yes.
and about. Because Sarah Jessica Parker is known for being out and about New York City, but she
Yeah.
can't just be out and not expect a bunch of people to just show up wherever she's filming and bombard the
Facts.
production. But back then, during the time they were filming, they could do that. It was
Yeah.
so much more. I will say, yeah, the aspect of there wasn't everybody with a phone videotaping
Exactly.
everything.
Exactly.
However, on top of that, I will also say, because this is something that happened to me when I moved to New York, and I'm not saying that New York does this to everybody, I'm just saying that my experience. When I moved to New York, I became very jaded. And stuff that impressed me all my life in New York, it was like somebody with a beautiful voice in the train singing, great. Somebody with perfect dance moves at the station, awesome. All these light and these huge signs and these. All of a sudden, New York made it less impressive because it was everywhere. Oh,
Yeah.
now I live on the 28th floor of this building. All these buildings don't look as big as they used to. So I feel like there was that element, and I feel like during that time, they could be out filming. And now I feel like a little bit of that New York still exists, where people see it and they're like, "Oh, it's what's happening. It's New York." But it's so much more common for people to be out and ready to take a photo and
Yeah.
record the production. That is not as free for them to do that. So they were in the
No.
perfect time to do that.
1000%. And I will say for everyone out there listening and who are fans and who keep up with and just like that, that's been part of the annoyance. Like, on one hand, it's great that, they're filming and they have all these fans, but on the other hand, it's so hard to keep things a secret. Like, I remember when the first season was airing, so many spoilers were leaked because people were there with their cell phones and they were overhearing things
Yep.
they shouldn't have. And they were taking photos. It was to the point that no secret big dies in season one, but it was to the point where they had to shoot different scenes and fake scenes just to
Yeah.
keep the fans from, spilling the beans. And, in a way it's great to interact with your fans, but in a way I can like it's kind of annoying. Like, you miss the old days when everything was a secret, Jay, and you had to wait for the next week to really find out.
Oh, I
Right?
know.
Like,
I get it.
now we can go on Reddit, guilty. We can go on Reddit and stuff and be like, yo, so who has the tea? Like, who has the dirt on like what's in store for this season?
Let me tell you, when I worked at Viacom, the craziness of the reason that I created such a relationship with productions is because so many of my jobs were around production, right? And New York City introduced that to me. And living in Puerto Rico, I would have never guessed I was going to be working in any sort of anything regarding production. But working in studios in New York taught me like all the intricate steps that you have to take to just step outside to film something, right? Something like having someone whose sole job is to make sure that no one's stepping into the shot and making sure that everything is measured correctly. It's so wild to think of how much it takes to do that. And for them to have done it for so long, I can
Mm-hmm.
understand. But they also ended at the perfect time because I don't think they could have continued to do that in the way that they were
No,
doing it. It would have been
no,
impossible.
there's no way. And honestly, I feel like Sex and the City is a show that's timeless, right? Like, that show could have kept going had they wanted to, because I really think it only ended because SJP, like, I think she wanted to move on with her life. She
Yeah.
was having kids
Her
and
name
whatnot.
was too big for the show at that time.
And much respect to actresses wanting to, like, do something else
Of
and move on in
course.
other families, but saying that to say that show could have kept going. But you're right, it would have lost, what's the word I'm looking for, like, spontaneous, like,
Spontaneity?
yes, like,
The
I,
element
I
of
feel like,
surprise would have been gone, yeah.
right, they can't be as spontaneous because they ended at the perfect time when technology was just really starting to boom.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now, yeah,
I
it's
agree. I
yeah.
completely agree. I feel like Sex and the City was done perfectly, and they needed to end because you always want to end your production on a high note, and I feel like they did. I just also feel like a lot of shows did this where they ended during that window of 5, 6 years, and they realized the 2010s, 2020s came up, and they realized, oh, wait a minute, we might need to go revisit that because nostalgia is going to be what brings the
Yes,
money again. And so it's
yes.
kind of you kind of fall into that realization at some point, but a good studio will feed back into what was good for them before.
Right. I think COVID for that too, though, because I don't know if you noticed, COVID, so many shows decided to come back alive during
Mm.
COVID. I mean, Dexter, which was amazing, did their spinoff. Sex and the City did a spinoff. I think there's another show I'm missing, but you're right. Like, these were shows that were great that people realized, like, we can do much more with it. And I
Yep.
think in regards to Sex and the City, you can always do something else with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not a show that necessarily needed to be put to bed when it did, so there was always time to bring it back and do something else, which is why I'm
So
really excited because we're starting to see the women in the for real in their next chapter, right? We left
yeah,
them
yeah, I
on this
agree.
note. Some of them were just getting married, just having kids, and I love how they did it. Like, they really took us across time. Like, they made it really true. Like, yeah, 15 years has passed, 20 years has passed. Here's what you get. And so I'm really excited that they brought this show back. Like, I honestly cannot wait for this season.
On that note, let me ask you this: when you found out about Sex and the City and then you started watching, what was it? What were the elements or the characters or anything about the show that kind of just grabbed you? Like, what was it that got you so attached to the show?
I mean, in the beginning, it was the clothes, as a child. And then their personalities. You grew up with these women. I grew up watching this woman before I ever thought of having a relationship, when I got my first boyfriend, when I was in deep in my relationships, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like we're all living the same New York City, men ain't nothing kind of life. Like, what is happening right now? And then you find yourself connecting to these characters. Like, I add Carrie Bradshaw, I CB.
Yeah.
Like,
Candice
like
B,
you
that
find
is true.
yourself connecting to them, like, whether it's similarities through life experiences, through jobs, through fashions, anything.
Yeah.
And it really felt it felt real, right?
Yeah.
Because well, I'll speak for me. I had friends who were very much like Miranda, Samantha, Charlotte. We weren't as old as they were at the time, but we
Yeah.
had similar personalities. And it's like, oh my God, we do this too. Like, oh my God, we're meeting up to talk about life as well. Oh my God, we're going through this as well. Oh wow, we all live in New York City. And it's crazy
I
because,
get it.
it's fiction and, it's a show, but they wrote it so real because
Mm-hmm.
everyone can relate to it and we were relating to it.
No, I agree. And the beautiful part of it is if you were a New Yorker, there was like a heavier level of attachment to the show.
Yeah.
Because I can't say a little gay boy because I wasn't that young, but being so young and being queer and living in the island in Puerto Rico, it was more of there local channels don't show you these kind of shows in Puerto Rico. You don't get this type of content over there. And I did have a unexplainable attachment to New York City, and I've never known where it came from, but I've always had an attachment to the idea of what New York City was. And I remember I remember we would have students that would move from New York to Puerto Rico because they had a parent that lived in the island or whatever, and I would always get attached to that person, right? And it happened to me in elementary school. It happened to me in junior high. It happened to me in high school, and it would always be because I was always so fascinated by New York. And I didn't know why. And when I moved to New York when I was 21, I feel like Sex and the City was a window to, oh, this is New York City. Welcome. But what got me so attached to the show was the element of Samantha. There's something so conceptually queer about the character Samantha. And I feel like she's spoken so much through the gay community, through the queer community, because Samantha is this girl in this girl group, right? And this girl group of friends where she is so unapologetically Samantha and she does not give a fuck of what she does, how she does it, who she does it with, who knows about it. And I feel like because she's made her life what she's wanted it to be, there was always that element of like, oh, well, that's the gay goal. That's the queer lifestyle goal, right? Because when everyone else is talking about what you're doing and who you're doing it with, you kind of just have to maneuver through that and still do it and still get to where you want to get to, regardless of what the hell they're saying. So
Right.
Samantha was my biggest attachment to the show, and I was always so fascinated. She was like such a mother figure to me, like such a TV mom. Of course, you don't think of Samantha as a TV mom, but it being gay, she kind of is, and yeah, that's just kind of
No,
who Samantha
yeah.
was.
No, I can see that because, first of all, she was written so well, and I don't think anyone could have played that character
No
but
one,
Kim Cattrall.
no
Anyone.
one.
And they wrote her so well because she was just very fluid, right? Like, there's an episode where she says she doesn't see color, she sees conquest, right?
Yeah.
And that's what she is. And I think in general, that Samantha, she doesn't see sexuality. Like, she just sees the person.
When it comes to
Right.
her attraction, yeah, her
Right.
sexual
She's
sense, yeah.
just unapologetically herself.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all love Samantha because you're talking about, the queer boy, the Christian girl who lived in church, right? Like, oh, I think Sex and the City on the low.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something so raw and real about her to like tell it like it is, give it like it is.
Yeah.
She, you could just relate to her because she was the person that I feel like a lot of us wish we could be. Like, tell it like it is without caring what anybody's going to say. And
Mm-hmm.
she just reminds me of someone who's just very fluid. There's no like labels with her,
Yeah.
right? It's just if I like you, I like you. I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you are. I don't care what this is. Like we're gonna meet, we're gonna have sex, we're gonna do what we do. And if we work, we work. If we don't, we don't. Like there's no she's not a Charlotte.
Absolutely. And she
She's
had
not a Charlotte.
that
Race doesn't
message.
come in, religion doesn't come in, sexuality doesn't come in.
Absolutely. And that message at the time had a lot of value.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you relate that to our mechanism, the mechanism of our generation, where it's like, well, the modesty, right? The contrary of modesty gets you shame, and it's
Yeah.
the element of Samantha kind of brings up like, no, like who the fuck is gonna shame you? Like the life is
Right.
owned by you, so no one else can come in and say anything else.
And I think that's where the writers, these writers are so great. I think that's where they did everything so well because they literally bought four different characters. I mean, completely crazy different, right? And they made them be friends, but you get to
Mm-hmm.
see everybody's perspective. Charlotte can be a little prudish,
Mm-hmm.
right? Miranda's judgmental, and then you have Samantha who's like, why do I even sit with you guys, right? Like, who are you guys? Like, how is it that we coexist when you guys think like this and I'm this? But they did it so well where each one of them can speak their mind and it was okay. And what I loved about that is that that's really how it is in friend groups, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
all the same. You have the conservative one. You might have the one
Yeah.
who's too judgmental. You might have the one who's a little too crazy, and maybe we don't even
Well,
know how you
here's the
sit
thing
with us.
too, Candice. Even the context of the four of them, a lot of times there's people who have all four of those personalities, right? Like it's
True.
okay to be all four of those people. And I feel like
True.
what's the cartoon movie where they have the inside in the mind characters inside out or something? Is it
Inside
Inside Out?
out.
Is
Yes.
it
I'm
Inside Out?
anxiety.
Well, even in that context, when you think about it, even all four of the ladies can exist in a context where
Yeah.
they are one, and that friend group can be a person. Like I am very proud of myself for having so many elements that contradict themselves, and I don't have the most likable personality because of that, but I'm very proud of that because it's something that I worked so hard to get. Where growing up, I was so embarrassed or ashamed to, oh well, if you're this way, you can't do that other thing. Where it's like I have to unlearn so much and relearn how well you can do this and you can do that if you want to do them both. And my life, I feel, my adult life has been built on that part of that juxtaposition, that contrast of things. And the context of these four ladies can exist in one
Yeah.
same space. And I agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree with what you just
And
said.
you're right about that too, because in some ways, you do see them trying to explore and be more like each other, right? Like you do
Yes.
see when Charlotte's with Trey trying to be a little more like Samantha.
Mhm.
You do see Miranda trying to be a little more sexual and a little more open. Carrie, I don't know. I think Carrie, yeah, I don't know. I don't
There's
know
no
about her.
hope for Carrie. Carrie is always going to be Carrie. But yes, you're right.
Maybe I'm
Where
not the real CB. Maybe her. I'm not gonna align myself too closely to her.
well, the thing with that is as you grow up, you learn, right? And
Yeah.
they learn that what brings them together is that what the other one has that they don't is probably the lesson that they need to learn. So when
Yes.
Samantha's shaking up Charlotte or giving her shit about, well, girl, get that stick out of your ass, you know what I mean? Like loosen up a
Yeah.
little. It's her saying, like, if you want to get to that point, you're saying you might want to get rid of certain things. When
Facts.
Miranda's being pissed off at certain things that the other ladies are doing, it's probably because she needs to knock some of those walls down. So every part of them that affects each other is a lesson that the other one probably had to take with them to like progress
True.
to the next day. Because the more and more seasons that we got through, the more not that they became like each other, but the more like that they were. The more they
Yeah.
were agreeable with each other, the more that they could exist in a space without having to oppose each other, right?
Yeah. I agree. I
And that
agree.
happens, and
That's
that
a very
happens
good
in
take.
every friend group, or should happen in every healthy friend group, but it should also happen inside like ourselves, where when something contradicts it, you have to find, okay, well, where's my middle ground with this? Where do I stand with this? But
I would love to peek inside their heads because you mentioned Inside Out. I would love to see what Carrie Bradshaw thinks and like what like goes
ooh,
off. And I swear they're all batshit crazy. Excuse my French.
no, I'm with you. I will even use that comparison with us, where you're a lot more composed, a lot more PG, and I feel like I'm a lot more burst out with a nasty mouth and all that. So that can exist in a space, and I
That's
feel
a
like
nasty.
well, yeah, and I love it, and I love it, and a lot of people need to allow themselves more to have those juxtapositions within themselves. And, in a continuation question to that, is there anything that the show gave you or that you took away from the show that is now a part of your life that you would say, oh, well, this is so Sex in the City of me, or this I got it because of my experience of Sex in the City?
I mean, my God, some of the things that Carrie Bradshaw has lived and went through, I'm like, oh wow, I just manifested that into my life. Like, no, honestly, you know how when, like those memes on Instagram, where it's like me listening to the song at 14-year-old as if I had a
Mm.
full-fledged relationship when I didn't. Like, that's how I felt watching the show. Like, I lived all of those like dialogues as if I had relationships.
Yeah.
Like, and then I actually went through a lot of those things
Yeah.
like years to
I can
come.
understand it. Yeah.
Right? Like it's so crazy. But yeah, I definitely feel like I've related a lot to the show because there were a lot of certain things that really aligned, even though it's fiction, but I'm like, that same thing that just
Well,
happened to me.
with that, you know that a lot of people that don't or have never lived in New York City would believe that those things don't happen. But when you live in New York City, that show's a lot more realistic than you think. Like
One thousand
there's so
percent.
much of that show that I'm like, I experience that on the daily. You know?
But yeah, I think there's too many connections that I have to the show. Right? I
Yeah.
definitely as I got older, the fashion always stood with me, especially just like that lifestyle. You know what's really stood with me with them is that I remember telling my friends, we should all, well, this was unrealistic, by the way, but we should definitely be like Sex and the City and meet up, at least once a week to brunch,
Yeah.
even though they did it like every other day.
Yeah.
Then we got older and we realized we lived in New York and we realized New York is expensive and we're broke college students. So we cannot brunch once a week. Like that's crazy. But then we were like, no, we need to keep this tight knit group because that's something that we always took from the show is like that closeness, that
Yeah.
tightness, like that togetherness. And then we would actually meet up like once a month and we would talk about everything. It wasn't necessarily as juicy as, I don't
Of
think we
course. Yeah.
really
It
had a
wasn't as
Samantha.
dramatized or theatricized.
Definitely not as dramatized. Well, I definitely had a Mr. Big. That's for sure. Definitely had a Mr. Big. And I think that's something so funny that we always relate to because in my friend group, everybody knows I live, breathe, sleep, eat Sex and the City and one of my other best friends as well. And so we're like, yo, I definitely have a Mr. Big. And here's my friend, oh no, I have a tray. They're like, how do you have a tray? Like we're mad young. How do you have a tray? Like if you get what I mean, like
I know.
how do you have a tray?
Yeah. At
At the
16,
tender age
17.
of 23, what's happening? Viagra, like at 23. That's
Wild.
crazy. But yeah.
And I think that that's what the beauty is about Sex and the City. And just like that got announced, that nostalgia of now I've had a life in New York City. Now I've lived that I am the character in New York City. And now the show's about to come back in a new age and in a new space. So now I want to see what's going on after all that because I live in New York. I'm still a resident of New York, even though I don't live there physically. But being so much more attached to New York City, which is I consider home, seeing that the show was coming back to me, it was more of like, oh, well, this has to be like a new showing of where everything is at in the real New York. And I feel like that excitement is what grabbed me on to the show, and that's what wanted me to do a podcast in the first place. Because for everybody that doesn't know, you and I met online,
I was
and
just about to get into this.
it was out of us both wanting to comment on the show, and I feel like because I was so attached to the show, I wanted to do something that related my experience with the show and New York and my life to whatever was about to be shown. That's why I feel like I put out the need of like, hey, I want to do this. Who wants to do this with me? And you existed in an opposite side of that where you were like, well, I want to do this. I'm here. Let's do
Yes.
this.
Wait, but tell everyone, please, how we met
Go
on the
ahead.
great state of Reddit.
Oh my
I'm like
god.
obsessed with Reddit.
On the
I'm
United States of Reddit.
the United States of Reddit, everyone. Like obsessed. And I will never forget because one thing I love is put my opinions out there. And I'm just like on this Sex and the City and just like that forum. And now I also have the tea, right? For a lot of things. Like, look at me talking mad nonsense about people getting the tea. I have tea. And I was like, yeah, well, this is not gonna happen. This is not gonna happen. And I'm like arguing with these people on Reddit. And I'm like, okay, I'm bored out of this Reddit. I'm bored. And then I see someone who's like, hey, I'm interested in starting a podcast. I was like, that'll be lovely. Let's look at this. And you
Yeah.
were so serious. And I didn't
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't really expect that. Like I just thought it was like hocus pocus. Like, oh,
So
someone's
wait,
just
you read my post and then you were like what? What was your like?
I read the post, and
What was
because
your
I'm
brain about
so
it?
impulsive, I'm like, oh my God, this sounds excellent. Like, click, let me see if this is serious. But I didn't really think it was.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get myself out there and, like, oh, let me just shoot my shot. But it's probably nothing. It's probably just someone wanting to post and get
Oh my
ready to argue.
god. Well, no, the post came from a place where I was like, I at that time it was what 2020,
Jesus, maybe, yeah.
2020 or 2021.
Yeah.
And I was at the time I wasn't living in Chicago yet. I was living in Los Angeles. Yeah, I was living in Los Angeles
You weren't
County.
in New Jersey?
Oh shit! No, wait, was I living? I was in the East
No,
Coast.
I
Was
think
I?
no, never mind.
Was I living in the East Coast?
I don't know. All I know is that I envy your life because in the great span of 3 years, you've been everywhere, different
Oh,
states,
girl,
different
girl.
countries. Jealous.
Against my own will. But no,
Jealous.
I believe I was living in Los Angeles County. And at that time, had already launched my production label. And a lot of what I was working with was a lot of nonsense. And I produced a lot of stuff, some great stuff, but some not so great stuff. And I said, you know what? I kind of want to do something for myself, just to, the time that I have for myself, just to put it into something.
Yeah.
And when the announcement of the show came out, I was like, I think this is what I want to do because I'm so attached to the Sex and the City universe, right? The cinematic universe of it, that I wanted to do something with it. And I could only find like 3 or 4 podcasts that were focused on that space, and then 1 or 2 that were going to go into the conversation of it just like that. So I said, I want to do this. I'm going to find somebody that wants to do it. And I'm glad I found somebody because at the time I remember I was having conversations with multiple people, right? And Lord Jesus, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. But then when you reached out, I was like, oh, this girl's like Sex and the City obsessed. Like she wants to get into the conversation. She wants to do this. And it was sort of immediate. It was like, let's do this, let's go on. And I'm glad it worked out. But
Me too.
yeah, it was on Reddit, which is where I live mostly. I'm not a social media person, but Reddit and Discord are my virtual homes, right? It's where I spend a lot of time. And that's kind of how Revirginized got birthed.
That's exactly how Revirginized got burned. I remember I came on FaceTime with my Bad Bunny shirt, my hair in a bun, looking a hot ass mess. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Like, just give it all I got. Does he want me to just talk? Because I do that for a living. Like, that's all I do is chat. Like,
Yeah.
let's get into this. And then the rest is history. But I really love that we were able to make something out of this because you're right. Not a lot of people were doing things with Sex and the City, well, in the Sex and the City universe, I should
Mm-hmm.
say, definitely not the end just like that universe. And I'm like, holy moly, like, what if we can get picked up and do
Yeah.
something with this? Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And now here we are, 3 seasons,
There you go. I love it.
neck deep in.
I love it. So then, and just like that comes on, then you start watching. And what is your experience watching it just like that? Like you watch first season, second season. What is your experience from that first
Oh, man.
episode throughout? Like what are your feelings for it just like that? Because I can tell you mine. I can tell you mine.
Tell me
I
yours.
when it just like that got announced, I like I said, I was so excited and I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to be a part of the conversation some way somehow. And when I started watching it just like that, I felt like they felt the need to go back to this space of Sex and the City, but because Kim Cattrall didn't come back, they had to build something new. So they built another show called And Just Like That instead of the continuation to Sex and the City. Sex and the City. And what happened is in my brain, I'm starting to feel like, oh, they're not getting it right. They're not showing Sex in the City. They're telling us so much. This is not Sex in the City. This is and just like that. But what we're seeing is Sex in the City, right? And there's nothing is separating us from Sex in the City except for the name and production making such an effort. And I feel like that first season was such a messy I feel like it provoked so many messy feelings because I was disappointed, and I think the expectation was so high that I could only get disappointed, right?
Yeah.
But it was still an experience to watch because I'm glad I went through the entire season because you get to see the continuation to these characters that you were so attached to back then. But at the same time, it provides context to, well, these are also these older people, right? Cast and crew that are navigating this new world, trying to figure out how to bring this original IP into this modern space of TV, and they're making a lot of mistakes. And I think I was gravitating more towards those mistakes. I was like, oh, they're making these mistakes. Let me learn what those mistakes are. And I was applying a lot of that to the productions that I was working on. And I feel like I got some enjoyment in hating on the show a little bit too. And I was glad that I could every week come with you on camera to talk about what was going on my TV.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I was so disappointed, but something amazing happened with me being disappointed. I mean, it just gave me more stuff to talk about because I want to put the record out there. No matter what I feel about the writing of the show, because I know people are going to watch this, right? I still love Sex and the City. I still love it just like that. I'm gonna pop my stuff, but I still love it and I'm always gonna watch. But yeah, I just could not get into the writing of the show, man. And I remember saying to myself, well, damn, I write like, hello, someone hire me, like, let me fix this. Because, like, I'm someone who's been with this show since 1998. Literally, no lie, watched every single episode over 20 times, way over, right? And so I was disappointed because I felt like they should have gotten someone who knew the show, was familiar with the show, to kind of keep some type of consistency, right? Or something, what's another word I'm looking for? Like a better word. Like to try to, well, yeah, like
The
some kind of
flow.
consistency
It's the
because,
flow.
yeah, the flow, because it just felt all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? Like Steve was doing things. I'm like, that's not Steve. And I mean, then he
Yeah.
hits me and I'm like,
They
yeah.
twisted a lot of the feelings of the show to introduce so much, right? I feel like
Right.
conversations of today got to them from what they were working back then, and they needed black characters. They introduced a Middle Eastern woman. They introduced a non-binary character, but they did it so forcefully that none of it felt
Yes.
smooth. And then it took
Yeah.
away from what that could bring to the show.
Right, because, and I want to set the record straight on this too. One of the reasons why I love Sex and the City is because I'm a lover of people, right? I love all people. Sex and the City was that show that introduced us to characters. They had queer people on their show, right? Like, I will never forget when they were playing bingo, drag queen bingo, right? Like, they were introducing biracial couples, right? Like, diversity. So when they got all this, because then we enter the woke
Of course,
era
yeah, of
of
course.
everything, and it was forcefully woke on everything, not just and just like that. But then when they were getting all this hate, like, oh, they don't have this, they don't have this, and now they're introducing all these characters, it did feel forced. And I'm like, wait, but you're taking away from the beauty.
Yeah.
We didn't make we maybe didn't have like a black and brown person that was like a main character, but we definitely had characters who took on that role, right? Like Sex in the City did not see again color, it didn't see sexuality. That was the beauty of the show.
Yeah.
And so I do want to agree with you that when it just like that came out, although I'm loving the introduction of black and brown characters, main characters,
Yeah.
I did feel like it was a little too forced. I felt like some of the dialogue was like too woke. I just felt like it wasn't really consistent or really flowing.
Yeah,
But then again,
they were unaware. They were not self aware of the conditions.
yeah. And that maybe I'm being a little too hard. And you guys, like the fans and people watching, you can definitely tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I am being a little too hard on them because I think that's a shift that we're seeing a lot now in TV. Like in TV now, you have to be a little more woke. You have to be a little more. It's like you can't just joke the way you used to either,
Well,
right? Because cancel culture.
yes, but I will disagree with the element of the woke perspective because
Disagree.
I don't enjoy the conversation of wokeness, right? Like, to me, wokeness is fuck you and your wokeness, and fuck you and your disagreement of wokeness, right? To me, it's more of you have this project, right? And you have a project that lived in a certain space and time. You are now bringing this project back in a different space and time. How can you introduce that project into the current conversation? And there are thousands of ways that they could do that naturally. I just feel like that the choices that they made to do so were not natural. Like you said, when they were having these conversations on the original show for years, the way that they chose to revisit these conversations in the modern time, it was very much a space that did not, one, need them, and two, didn't get the right showing of it. If you're going to come back, you feel the pressure to be a part of the modern conversation. There was a gap of time between the original show and this show. Have it filled with that. Have these characters already exist in that space. Have a main character that's a black woman, be introduced into the group chat. Have them all be a part of the situation already. Don't clump them up and introduce it to us as you're introducing yourself to it. Oh, my daughter's non-binary now. That's beautiful. But if you're throwing it into a storyline that just brushes it away, you're doing nothing for that character. You're doing nothing for that storyline. Have it be a part of the natural flow of the show and give us that space, right? Like pace your time. Like you do not need to throw everything in there at the same time. You can get to it, right? You can build up to it. And I feel like that's what a lot of it was missing from season 1 because they needed to make so many decisions right then and there that I feel like they said, well, let's throw it all in there and try to mix it in and see how it sticks. Great that you feel like you need to do that because yes, I do want productions to feel the pressure of you need to be inclusive, you need to be diverse. That's right. If the world is just inclusive and diverse, you need your project also needs to show that, right? And especially it's a New York City production. You can't come back in the 2020s and not have a show that is diverse and inclusive in New York City because that's what New York City is. So having to do it, yes. Do it to where it does its service, right? To where it does something for it. And that's where I felt like they were missing the point sometimes. Yeah, no, a lot of times. And again, it's just like, and it wasn't just us saying this, but I heard it a lot. Like, the writer's room could have been better, right? Like, go back, study the show, and find ways to make this flow better, right? That's authentic to the show. What can we bring in? What can we leave back there? Correct. And it's like you said, like, have that already in the show. Okay, your daughter's not binary. This is your, like, have that already there, but don't just clump it all for us and, like, okay, here's what we have because we just started a new show. Season 1, here's everyone. Yeah. But I will say part of that writing, right? As much as I hated it, it did give us something to talk about, which I loved. Because we weren't the only ones, and granted, I don't know what kind of pressures they're going through in the writers' room, but I will say I'm not going in with any expectations this season, right? If it sucks, amen. We're gonna have a great show. We're gonna talk about ways that you and I can get in the writers' room and rewrite it ourselves, right? And if it doesn't suck, amen. We're still gonna have a great show. I agree. But I think a lot of this rebooting, that's been happening with these shows, I think they are listening to what fans are saying. Like I think that because Sex and Just Like That has not been really scoring as high as the original show. Yeah. Like you go to IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, like people are being very honest, and it still has a loyal fan base because we're loyal. And we're gonna do it no matter what. But on the review side of it, it's like, what is this? Right? So I think that they are taking into account like what can we do? How can we make this better? But also, Candice, this season, they could have been listening from before they scored. Absolutely. Don't let me get up in here and lie because you're absolutely right. They could have. They really could have. That's where I can't forgive in that conversation because it's like you had the option to come back. You also had the option to see where the people that were going to watch wanted to watch from. So you should have been listening from back then. But your project has to do. Ben got rid of Che. But then your project has to do bad for you to listen to the fans, and it's like, okay, wait a minute. I don't want that. I don't want to be a backseat option. But I want to do a quick round of reactions, and I'm going to name characters, and I want us both to react with our relationship with the character, right? Just briefly just say what our relationship is to the character. Because I know so much of the show is the character story. There's so many shows where the story is told through the time and the occurrences where Sex and the City and Just Like That is so much characters that removing one distorts the story. We see what happened with Samantha. Samantha not being a part of the production distorted so much that we kind of had to like staple a lot of the production right together.
She's gonna come back, FYI. Mark my words. I
hear that. Honestly, I hear that because we started out in the space where she wasn't even going to make cameo, and then the cameo happened. So I feel like we're getting to the space where they can heal and they can make something happen. But let me start throwing out some names, and of course, the obvious first name is Carrie Bradshaw.
Am I gonna like rate her?
Damn, not rate her.
Love her. I mean, I see a lot of myself in her, not too much, but I do.
No, I understand. I never gravitated to Carrie. I never really liked Carrie. I always knew that the show was told from her point of view and her perspective. I just never saw Carrie as anyone to look up to or to have as like a pivotal point of any kind because I couldn't relate to her. My experience was so distant from what hers was, so to me it was just I just could never gravitate to the character, but I understood she was the main character, and I understood that the perspective of the show was told from So yeah, my relationship was more like, got it, she's the main character, let's see what she's about to get into.
I mean, you say Carrie Bradshaw, and I also tend to think selfish, right? I don't really feel too bad for her because she does kind of like put herself in these messy situations, Lord.
Yeah, she does.
But I love her because what she is to shoes, I am to bags.
There you go.
Right? Like,
there you go.
So it's that fashion connection and that CV connection and that choosing bad men connection.
I get that. Charlotte, you're golden black.
Okay, her, because she is judgmental as well. Her prudishness and judgmental ways aside, love her. I am her. The OCD, the classiness, the wanting to do everything right, and the perfectionist, love her. But that other stuff that she be doing, because she be tweaking, I don't know about that, sis. But yeah.
Charlotte is the interesting part of the friend group where it's like you don't really know. I can see how Miranda, Samantha, and Carrie could have existed in their friend group, and then you bring Charlotte in and you're like, well, how did y'all become friends with her? Because she is so distant from a lot of the, I wouldn't say values, and a lot of what the concepts that form them as friends and as people.
Definitely say it.
I know. But she kind of lives in that island of Charlotte. And to me, Charlotte was more of like that consciousness, that angel in the shoulder. But that angel in the shoulder had a lot of issues that most times chose not to face.
She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, bro. Like, she literally...
Yeah, Charlotte is.
Sometimes I look at her and I'm like, the elevator doesn't always go to the top. Love her.
I agree. Miranda Hobbs. Damn, another side.
No. I wish that I had, like, her balls. She has, like, a lot... I think of her and I think of moxie, like that word moxie. I wish I had her grit, I guess. I don't know. What do you think when you think of Miranda Hobbs?
Here's where it gets sticky.
Is it the old Miranda Hobbs or the new Miranda Hobbs?
The Miranda Hobbs that we were introduced to in Sex and the City. The one that we got attached to, the one that we learned. And just like that just brings an entirely different essence of these characters. So the Miranda Hobbs from Sex and the City. And as much as
all the abandonment issues and the trust issues.
There you go. As much as I would like to say something different, I am a Miranda. I can't believe it just put that out. I am a Miranda. And I feel like Miranda was so upsetting to me. And watching Miranda, I was always like, why is she so this? And why is she have a stick up her ass? And why is she... And the more I did growing and the more therapy I went through and the more adulthood I stepped into, the more I realized like, oh, Miranda might be making more sense. Like, Miranda might make sense. And I feel like I saw myself adulting into Miranda, where, life is not all pretty flowers and butterflies. Life has its itches and stitches and, it has its grits and ugliness to it. And I feel like Miranda lives through that and has created a sense of pessimism from those experiences where I feel like I've leaned more towards my optimism of that, but my experience has been much closer to Miranda's, where the decisions that she makes, she sticks to, and the goals that she sets, she aims for, and she travels to them. And I feel like that's something that I become very proud of. Whereas it may trigger other people, and people may not like that personality, but what you don't like about my personality is what I like most. So that's why I say sometimes, well, I put so much work into becoming this that if you don't like it, it's like, well, okay, I understand, and you can live at distance from who I am. But
Right.
yeah, I'm very much a Miranda.
But honestly, Miranda is, when you get to the core of it, she is the most level headed, right? She is the one who actually makes the most sense. It may not translate like that sometimes,
Yeah.
because she has a lot of like her own personal issues. And I don't mean like issues in a bad way. I mean like trust issues, her fears that manifest. But watching the show from season one all the way out, she is the one that's the most like level headed, right? Charlotte is she just lives on her own planet. Carrie, Carrie, Carrie's just me, me, me. And Samantha's great, and I know we're about to get into her.
Yeah.
Samantha doesn't necessarily see things rationally either. But
True,
Miranda has
true.
always been like the more logical
True.
one, but she just gets a little more hate for it because she's rough.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like she comes and but the thing with Miranda is she is the friend that we all need. She's the one that's gonna give it to her
I
and Samantha.
hear
Actually.
that a lot. You know, an issue that I go through a lot with relationships is where I meet people and I'll have a great time, and we'll get close and all that kind of stuff, and then the relationship will end. And a lot of my experience is people coming back years after saying, "Oh well, you were right, or I should have appreciated the stuff that you said back then. It affected me this way, but now." And I'm like, okay, well, I wish you would have appreciated that in the moment when you knew me, because a lot of people that I no longer have communication with will come back and say things like that, like, now I miss you. And it's like, well, we knew each other for a long time. Why did you miss me then? But I've realized it's because of that. It's because sometimes the logic doesn't translate as well. But I understand that roughness, and I understand that not everybody is able to digest it. So what I do in my own personal life is I pull it back so that I don't give it to, I don't allow myself to share that with everyone, because I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way. But the people in my life will get that. The people in my life know how it's coming to them.
Yeah. And that's why at the core of it, she to me is the best friend to have.
Yeah, she'll tell you how it is.
Everybody calls Carrie their best friend, but I think Miranda is really the best friend that you should have.
I know.
And she actually segues beautifully into Samantha.
Samantha,
Because
yeah.
I think of Samantha, and I think Samantha's another one who you need, because she's very like honest, very loyal, right? They both are. And if you look back in the seasons, you see that Samantha and Miranda were always like linked and in sync.
You know what? A
Almost
line that I love from the first movie, when Carrie's jilted and they're in Mexico, and Samantha and Miranda come together unspokenly, right, to like kind of bring her back to reality, and they're like rearranging what's about to happen, and Carrie goes, "You two could rule the world. Like, you two could rule the country." And it was so realistic, because the logic and the functionality of the two together, they were like a machine that operated the two of them so well. It made sense.
Yeah. And I honestly, always being innocent and everything, like I just loved Samantha because she was like, Dad, you kind of, you go through life, let's be for real. Christian or not, we all go through the same things, right? You go through life, you get your boyfriends, you go through this, and you're like, Dad, I wish I can kind of be like Samantha, but I'm not a Samantha, right? Like I can never be a Samantha. Like I'm just
You have to make it clear. You have to make it clear.
And I'm like, but Dad, I wish I could just be Samantha, even for like one whole month. Like, I wish I could just be all of who she is, like everything, like just her whole person. But I loved her. I think Samantha brought something to the show that we all either related to or wish we could relate to, right? Like, but she had different elements of her that I think every single one of us could relate to as well. Because she also had her issues, right? She also had her little trust issues. She was also closed off, just like Miranda.
Yeah.
Because she didn't want to be hurt. Like, when you really pull back the layers to her because she was such a deep onion. There was levels to Samantha, and I think she really did bring the show together. That's the honesty and the loyalty and the fun. Right?
Yeah,
The fun, because Sex in the City just would not be as fun
I
without her.
agree.
Like, you think of her and you think of, okay, that's the show. A lot of people think Carrie's the show, but then you think of Samantha, and you're like, okay, that's the show.
Yeah, yeah, and
Like, she's
she is
neck
a
and neck
show
with the fashion.
of her own. Yeah,
100%. This is the PR badass. She's neck and neck with the fashion. You know, she doesn't always live in reality either. Like, sometimes her logic, I'm like, Samantha.
she
Samantha.
will
Like,
take the long way to the closest spot because she
yeah.
wants to see what's there. And it makes no sense, but she arrives at some point, and it is what it is. You just have to accept it, right?
Do you think you have Samantha in you?
Oh, I have a lot of Samantha, and I went through the raw Samantha phase where my 20s, because I therapy helped me to relieve myself a lot from shame. I'm able to look at my past experiences with pride and a lot more closeness than shame or embarrassment. Where yeah, I was very sexual in my 20s. I was living in New York City. And being gay in New York City is such a blessing because New York City, I would say New York City, of all the places I've lived, New York and LA allow you a certain opportunity to be in a space with every single type of person that exists and be able to experience every single one of them, but yet go back into your cubby life of your own. Yeah. And it's so weird how it does it, but I feel like my experiences in LA and New York gave me that. And I feel like moving to New York City at 21, I'm now free in the world, in this bigger world than what I've known. And now I want to, yes, I want to see all of it. I want to do all of it. I want to experience all of it. As all the things. As I experienced everything, I started learning what my boundaries were, what my limitations were, what my likes were, what my tastes were. And I feel like that's very necessary because if you've only tried 3 colors, you're only going to have feedback on 3 colors. Whereas if you open the full crayon box, you get to see what you like and don't like, what you're able to gravitate to and not. And I feel like that's how you build your adult self. And I'm so attached to the adult self that I built that to me it's like, you don't like it, good for you.
I think you and Samantha would be like best friends.
I've had a lot of Samantha friends, and in having a lot of Samantha friends is how I've learned, like, maybe I'm not as Samantha as I think I may have been, right? And yes, I went through my whole phase, right? I went through my phase of just not giving a fuck. I was just doing all of it with anybody who was willing to do it. But I feel like once you start falling into yourself, you start learning that, wait a minute, this might not be who I am. And there's people who, that's who they are, and that's beautiful. That's perfect. Go on and do that. Live your life. Live your truth. I learned that I live closer to a Miranda than a Samantha. But my friends I've had so many Samantha friends that are still in my life that I feel like the energies are energying. I have Samantha friends, and I'm like, oh my God, how do you do that? Like, I wish I could be you for a month. Like, and then I'm like, oh wow, like that's a lot. Like I'm never gonna be Samantha, but that's okay. Yeah, it's aspirational. It's Samantha life. Aspirational. We'll live vicariously through you. Yeah. I get it. I completely get it. And here's what we're going to do. We are going to go in depth with a longer list of characters. But to catch that, make sure that you subscribe to wherever you listen to our podcast and follow us on our social medias. Yes. We'll be dropping an exclusive extended session of this rapid fire that we just did with Sex and the City. But to continue on the conversation of where we're at now and the space that we're living in while we're watching the show and as we're coming into season 3, I wanted to ask you, outside of Sex and the City and to step away from that little space for a bit, what are you watching? Is there anything that you're watching aside from Sex and the City and just like that? Are you movies, shows? What's going on? So, because I feel like I was born in 1920, I am obsessed with 2020. All right, that's been running since like 1920. I love my 2020 episodes. I'm obsessed. Wait, 2020 the show? The show that it's not came out in like 1920. Yes, you know it has like 40 seasons. I love watching 2020. I'm like obsessed with crime. And there's something to be studied about that. Like people who can be at peace
watching crime shows, which is traumatic. Like I'm not right in the.
Well, I in New England, I made a friend who I'm very close to now. Her name is Bryony, and she is obsessed with Law and Order. But I've never
Very New England
understood.
name.
She watches Law and Order all day, every day, and that's the only thing she watches. I've never
That used
understood
to be
that.
me. That used to be me, and I think virtually everyone who loves Mariska Hargitay and Detective Elliot Stabler with SVU. But then SVU became a little hard to watch because like it's like, like yeah.
Really?
Law and Order just hits like because I'm like these things really happen,
Yeah.
which is interesting because all these Law and Order is fiction, but these 2020 episodes are not, and I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
like with my snacks and stuff. But yeah, Law and Order, like it's SVU is, it's like sexual crimes, like it gets a little heavy. Obsessed with Dexter. Like I've always loved Dexter. Dexter did a reboot, and Dexter did two reboots, and it was Dexter New Blood with his son. If you guys are not watching, you definitely need to watch. And then they came out with Dexter like when he was young with Christina Milian, by the way. So shout out to like Latinas getting like a lot of their airtime.
That's a shout out. That's a shout
Yes,
out.
Christina Milian. She's like on the new. I forgot the actual name, but it's like Dexter when he was young. It is a phenomenal. Like you guys need to watch that. The Handmaid's Tale. Okay. Blessed be, may the Lord open.
Oh my God.
All right, it is back on Netflix. And then I catch myself rewatching like old episodes of The Challenge because I am that MTV person.
Really? A lot of
Yes,
people
I love The
around me
Challenge.
that are obsessed with The Challenge. I feel like I need to go back
Favorite.
to The Challenge.
Favorite.
I'll
Not
watch
this
it.
new challenge.
No?
Not like this new one where they started doing like, the challenge times like love and whatever. Like they started
Yeah.
bringing like a lot of the UK cast, no disrespect, but it just got to be too much. But like that old school when it was like Road Rules
I remember.
and Real World with the chat, like that was amazing.
My first
And of
experience,
course,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, my first experience with The
no, you're
Challenge,
good.
I was working at a studio in Times Square, and they were filming. Okay, and maybe I'm getting this wrong. They were filming some sort of, I think it was a reunion or a special where they were reuniting from the past season, but then announcing the next season. And then there was the cast was there, and I was the box guy. So I was literally the guy they had the box in the back to hold their phones and their gums and whatever their snacks was. And they came into the studio, and I was just there. And I remember that was my first, what's this show? Whatever. And that's how I knew what the challenge was. But I remember the bananas guy being there.
Bananas guy.
There was a whole bunch of them, but that was my first introduction to that show.
And CT, like you can never forget CT Tabarello, everybody's first crush. You love him. And I do have some newer shows, but I don't know if this is like an anxiety thing because I won't be disappointed, but I love to rewatch old shows. So not only am I still rotating Sex and the City, but Entourage, which is like a favorite, The Sopranos.
Oh yeah.
I can't, and then there's some newer shows on like Paradise on Hulu is amazing.
It's good. It's a good show. It's a good show.
But what are you watching?
Wait, there was a question that arose when you said Entourage. Do you feel like Entourage is the Sex and the City for the guys?
I do. Yes, honest to God, that is what I love about Sex and the City, and I couldn't put it into words. But like people get so fixated, like, oh my God, it's such a sexual show. What kind of Christian are you? Like, oh my, no.
They never said that about Entourage.
It's more than that. Entourage also has a lot of sex in it, but like it's more than that. It's the friendship.
Yeah.
Like this one in the background. It is more than just she's making her debut. It is more than just that, and I felt like Entourage was the male version of Sex and the City.
Yeah,
people are like, oh, it's just so much of like sexual stuff. No, like there's heart, there's grit, there's so much going on.
I never understood.
Do you watch Entourage?
I watched it religiously, and then the movie happened after I watched the movie as well.
It did, and then there was talks of a reboot.
I don't know what happened with that. They'll probably come back at some point because I feel like that show was very successful, and that was a show that could have continued on past its time. I never understood why I was so attached to Entourage, and then at some point I was like, oh, this is Sex and the City but with guys, and then I was like, there was an element that wasn't uber masculine. right? Because I cannot watch those masculinity shows. It's like men wanting to be more manly, and I don't understand that. I just don't understand that. But yes, I did watch Entourage heavily
Amazing.
every week. Something that I'm watching now, I'm a big Marvel fan. I'm in the MCU. I am obsessed with the MCU. I'm just a really big fan of it. So I'm the guy that watches every single MCU production. Even if I dislike it, I watch it because I'm too deep in it to not watch it. So I recently
love this for us.
I love it. I love the MCU. I've loved it since Iron Man 1, and I felt like every single thing that dropped after, I was like, this is my thing. Like, this is my thing now. But I just watched Thunderbolts in the theater, and I loved the movie. The movie was so good.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
And then from the MCU, the trailer for Ironheart dropped today. And when I tell you, I'm so excited because it's in Chicago, and I left Chicago recently. That's one of the last cities I lived in. So I'm really, really looking forward to watching that. Something that I've been watching, I did watch Paradise. That first season of Paradise was good. I would have loved for that show to have existed in a different network. I feel like Paradise, if it would have existed in Netflix or in a space where it could have invested a lot more into, that could have been a great show because the show is really, really good. They had a concept that was so original to everything they're showing right now, and the perspective that they're following the show on is so unique. Like, there's not shows that are doing that right now. So I really, really appreciate the show for it. And then the main character, he's from This Is Us.
This is us.
Amazing. He is such a great actor.
Amazing.
So yeah, so I watched that, and then I've been watching Andor, the Star Wars show. I've been watching things here and there. Something that I'm obsessed with is Traitors. I am obsessed with the reality show Traitors. It has characters from the challenge, and then they bring them into this mansion, and they play this game where they have to find the traitors, and it's a murder mystery reality
They're all
TV show.
traitors on the challenge.
I know, right? It's a really, really great show. It's hosted by Alan Cumming, and I'm really obsessed with it. And besides that,
I love Alan Cumming.
to me, he's
The original Nightcrawler.
A-list of A-list, and I love that he's coming back to the MCU because that's going to be a big deal. A big deal.
Because super duper side note, I still buy comic books to this day.
Yeah.
I literally have my Kurt Wagner poster that just came in like a few months
I
ago.
I loved him.
Like, I am obsessed with Marvel. I spent all of spring break rewatching Marvel movies because I'm just that girl. And you said Alan Cumming, and I'm like, I knew I loved Jay. Like, I just knew. I love him.
I love Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming deserves all the flowers. He is A-list of A-list.
He does no wrong.
He does celebrity so well. I feel like there's very few people, and for him to be queer and be working as much as he's working, to me, it's always going to be prime. Like, there's very few people that I can look at that are celebrities that are out there, and I can say, I like what they're doing. So yeah, I'm always like rewatching shit. I'm always going back and watching stuff that I love. I live in the space where something random will hit my recommendations, and I'll just watch it for no reason. But I've been taking a lot more time to watch movies in theater. Like, I am liking going to the theater and just spending time at the theater and watching a movie there. It's something that
we're done with stealing, right? We're done pirating stuff, right? I mean, my dad he would still steal. Like, we can watch it for free. I'm like, it's not the same.
Well, the theater is an experience, and I'm getting to know that I was an adult, and I like it. I like when it's just I'm by myself watching a movie, and what I do is I will go to the restaurant and get some food and put it in my bag and bring my own snacks and everything that I want to eat. And there you go. It's my theater. It's my very own theater. I'm that person. I love it. I do it all the time.
I have Chipotle in the theater.
There you go. As you should. As you absolutely should. Basically, to close this conversation out, I want to ask you just a quick note of what your expectations, or even not expectations, something that you would like to see coming into season 3. Just whatever. I
think I just want to see more stability with the characters, with the storylines, right? Because they start strong and then they just, and I'm like, I know you guys want to give us juicy TV, but we grew up with you guys. We just want to see something stable. Are you with Aiden or are you not? Right? Like, Miranda, are you going to stay with women? Are you bi? Are you going to give Steve a chance or not? Like, let's
I know, yeah.
let's
Just
just get it
just
together.
for them to find their ground. I agree.
Because you know, you guys are 60. You're pushing 60.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make decisions at some point. You can't just live in this
What
ground.
about you?
I think going into season 3, all I want to see, all I want to see, and this is to piggyback off what you just said, because all I want to see is some grounding. I would like
Yeah.
them to not be so scared to take the cameras off of Carrie every now and then. Take the cameras
Right.
off Carrie, off Charlotte, off of Miranda every now and then, and just go somewhere else in the space. Just if you're gonna expand the universe with so many people, don't be so afraid to disconnect from them, and everything doesn't have to go back to them. Like,
Right.
other characters can exist in their own timeline without everything that happens falling back to the girls. And I would love for them to
Right.
show that, because it would give and just like that life, right? I feel like what it just like that has been missing is that living in its own and holding itself up. And I feel like if they start doing that this season, let the storyline take a breathe, like a lamping. Let an episode be where nothing happens and just show us the daily
Right.
occurrence of something.
Life.
I feel like if they allow for that to happen, I feel like we're going to be in a better space of, okay, well, we're stepping into something a little more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, because we've already lived through the ups and downs with you guys for 6 seasons,
Mhm.
right? Like you drove us crazy,
Yeah, we don't need to
right? Six
continue to get
seasons.
to know these characters.
Yeah, I think so too. Like stability.
Mhm.
We're okay with the boringness right now. We don't need, you know, a gotcha every episode.
I agree.
Well, guys, that's all we have for you for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think this went really well, Jay. I hope you guys enjoyed getting to know us. And before we leave, we just want to mention our goodie giveaways that we have this season.
Ooh.
So remember that we actually have merch, and one lucky fan will win over $100 of Revirginized merch. And all you have to do, yeah, there you go, like those nice sweaters that he had on last week that I don't have on this week. And that shirt that he has on that I don't have, yes. And then we also have 4 fans getting exclusive Revirginized merch as well. It's really easy. Remember to just follow us on all of our socials. But on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to us. Like our videos every single week. And it's that simple. That's how you enter.
And comment. Don't forget to
And
comment.
yes, comment and just stay active with us because, again, we are always looking forward to staying active with you guys. And so, yeah.
Awesome. And remember to follow Revirginized at RevirginizedPod on our socials, or visit revirginizedpod.com to get all of our links and anywhere you can follow us.
Yes. And then if you guys personally wanted to follow me, I am on Instagram at Blasina underscore. That's BLACINA underscore.
And you want to follow her because she posts all the time. Everything Sex and the City, everything fashion about Sex and the City. So definitely follow her on Instagram. For next episode, we're going to be breaking down the trailer for season 3 of It Just Like That. And we're going to be giving some predictions that we have for the show coming up.
Yes.
So make sure you
Yes.
stay tuned and subscribe.
Please do, because me and Jay are going to fight.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely going to get into it. It's going to be season 1 and season 2 for another season. So make sure to follow us and stay tuned. And we'll catch you next week.
Yeah. And just like that, see ya. Revirginized is a production of Jay Briar Allen, hosted by Candice B, produced and co-hosted by Jay, like the letter.